Hello ladies and gents, and welcome to this tutorial in Logic Pro X, where I'm basically videoing something I was trying to show my students this morning. Failed to get it across because Macs and Teams don't get on very well, and I couldn't share the audio, so that was a real shame. So that's the purpose of the video, but it may be of use to other people as well, so have a look. And the whole point I was trying to get across is how to change the characteristics of this particular piano sound to make it more gentle. I was trying to create a piece of mood music to go with a moving image, a kind of nice image recorded in my garden, or it's meant to be nice anyway, and I wanted this kind of really chilled, nice bit of piano music to go with it. So I programmed that, and if you watch one of the other videos you'll have heard it already, but it sounds like this. Just switch this ensemble off here for a moment. Okay, so that's what I programmed. In a previous tutorial I showed how I developed the second part from the first part using some step time sequencing, so do go and have a look at that if you're interested. So I switched the ensemble there. It's a modulation effect off from this top line in the middle. I meant to switch off before I started, but that's providing a bit of a sheen as well, which helped mellow the sound. I've left some of the other effects in for now because it's quite nice, the echo and the reverb and the EQ as well. But if I take all those off in both channels, you'll see that actually, even though pianos are quite synonymous with relaxing mood music, you know, piano moods and all that, quite often you see a nice tranquil scene, you'll hear a piano played. But a piano, think about it, as a percussion instrument, it hits the strings hard. You know, without any effects on it, this is what it sounds like. Okay, so it's quite clanky really. What I was trying to do then is mellow this out using lots of different techniques. The first one was actually looking at the instrument itself. And there are things you can do to soften these percussive sounds, what's also known as a transient, and within the instrument itself. But when you open it, I'm afraid it does look a bit like a Christmas tree, and you go, "Whoa, I can't cope with that." But I'm going to show you just the bits that are going to help. So first of all, you can jump to different bits of this by clicking on these different tabs at the top. You can also switch on other bits and pieces. We're going to look at mainly at the modulators. There's a little bit here in the synth part itself where you could mellow out. For example, let's make sure I've got the right part first of all. Now, for this, I would actually use this on the second part only because it's like a deeper part. I could mellow this out slightly by knocking some top end, some brightness off it, and you can do that using the filter actually. So if I just play it along, I'll just solo that part. Okay, that's already quite a bit more mellow. I don't actually want to do that. I wanted to keep the tonal properties there of it. So what I did instead was I went to what's called the envelope, or the amp envelope. Envelopes are, it's a shape that you wrap around an event. In this case, we're wrapping this shape around the actual sound that's being amplified and emanated from this instrument. So that's what I mean by amp. So it's the amp envelope. And an envelope works on the basis of how quick the note starts, how quick the note finishes, what happens after you release the key, what happens after it reaches a certain point, and all these sort of things. And they're translated into this thing here called ADSR. Now, ADSR stands for attack, decay, sustain, and release. And for a piano to sound like a piano, you need more or less instant attack, which is this line here, vroom, because it's the hammer hitting the string. Bong. But actually, if you reduce that attack ever so slightly, just by softening it off, you can make the piano sound more mellow. Went a little bit overboard there, didn't I? It's turned into like a... It sounds like a squeeze box. You take it so far before it starts sounding wrong. With the other part, that might sound alright. Let's just try it, because you can hear that, can't you, that it's lost its attack, quite literally. Sounds a little unnatural to me. I'm going to edge it back a bit. So that's one way of doing it. It's fiddling. You do end up with sounds which are realistic, like a piano. You do end up with that kind of... Something's not quite right with that piano, so you've got to be a bit careful with that. The other way to reduce the impact of these transients is to actually compress them. And compressors are good anyway for making the sound generally more steady way. Here's one I plugged in earlier. I'm going to switch it on and have a look at it. So the compressors work on a basis that, based on what you set in terms of where it starts and how much it compresses by, it nudges down the loudest parts of a signal chain, so it'll hit the peaks down. Now, of course, the loudest bit of a piano is the boom, where it hits. So it's going to push those down in level, which is going to make a more gentle sound. But not with these settings. So let's go through these. So first of all, I always like to set up a compressor from scratch, so switch off all your auto, everything. And then you work out how much you want to compress by and at what point in the signal path you want to compress. So I started off around about, what was that, minus 25, minus 26.5. And that means that any signal that goes over minus 26.5 decibels in the signal chain, bearing that 0 decibels is the point of distortion, is going to start being compressed. It's going to be compressed by this amount. Makeup gain is to replace what you perceptibly lose, because you are losing some gain on the loudest points in the signal, but obviously the quieter bits are staying the same. They're not being affected, so you can actually make up the gain afterwards, and that means that the quieter bits have now become louder and the louder bits have come down to that level. It makes it a lot less dynamic, as in you get less nuances and you can well overdo it. You only got to watch an episode of Glee to work out what overdone compression sounds like. But if I set this back to 0 and we watch in the meter, you can calculate this actually. So my settings here are going around about minus 6 in gain reduction. So if I push this up to plus 6, I've kind of replaced what I've lost, but made the whole sound more steady away. That's obviously not particularly helping very much at the moment, because there's one little control on here which is causing a bit of a problem. Ordinarily I like to increase the attack, which means that you delay the start of the compressor, allowing the kick of the piano to come through and then compressing the tone. And that's quite a technique in itself when you're recording pianos and you want them to sound bright but also under control. But in this case I'm trying to mellow the transients, so I'm going to take that attack right down to nothing and see what that does. Much softer. Okay. And of course your echoes and your reverbs and your delays and all that jazz also help to make things sound soft. So I've just been using presets with these. Well, I certainly did for the reverb. In fact, I think this one just switched on. I went, oh, like that. I didn't even set anything. So let's pop that back on for the needs to be put on the top one as well. That'll make things sound softer. Let's put the compressor back on there. Certainly making it sound a little bit more dreamy. The echo, this is an interesting one. Instead you add all these in your audio effects, just click on the empty box, go and find them in the list. So you'll find that compressor under dynamics, compressor, there we are. You'll find reverb under reverb, strangely enough, and you'll find echo under delay. Delay and echo work on the same principle. So yeah, you get a nice dreamy sound with reverb. I've kind of put it in an imaginary dreamy kind of hall or something. I did echo to the top line, and what I did here was I didn't use a preset here. I just fiddled on. I synced it of 1/8 notes, and I messed with the wet and dry signals, made sure 100% dry signal came through, so that's 100% original signal, and I reduced the wet right down so that you hear a touch of delay. So it gives that bam 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 bam. Of course, if I increase the wet, it will sound a bit ridiculous. If I switched it on. Let's try that again. Switch it on. Right, so what I originally had was this. Dun, 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 dun. Of course, as I say, we turn up the wet signal, it sounds ridiculous. I'm not after that, I'm after this kind of really subtle. Adds a certain level of dreaminess to it, so if you like that, add it. I also found I wanted some kind of modulation effect, but nothing as strong as a chorus or a flanger. I just wanted something to make it a bit more dreamy and spread, so I put in a preset from this ensemble, and I just chose a preset screen door, and it gave me this lovely sheen over the top piano part. So can you hear that lingers? It's almost like there's another instrument in there, and I'm really getting to where I want to be. And the other thing, I did this actually before any effects, but I've also used EQ. And in this instance, I've given the mids a little bit of boost in the top line to make them sing through, and in the underlying accompaniment, I've given the bass a bit of a boost, and I cut the top end off to mellow it a bit more again. A bit like I was doing with that cut-off filter within the instrument itself. And even though we started off with two Steinway Grand Pianos, they're now both sounding very different. There's the bottom bit. There's the top bit. Very different sounds now, but sit well together. Okay, so I'm sure you're sick of hearing that. That'll do for now. I'm going to do another video about effects chains, which is going to be much more useful in a much wider set of applications, but I hope that was of use to you. Thanks for watching.